This episode of the Adventure Jogger is brought to you by Joe Kern, Andrea Hintz, Olivier Galeman, and Becca, and all of our Patreon supporters, and of course, you, the wonderful listener. The Adventure Jogger, a podcast about trail and ultra running. Meet fascinating runners from the front, middle, and back of the pack, sharing inspiring and funny stories about life and running. Running should be fun, and so should running podcasts. I'm your host, Stephen Kornhaus, and this is the Adventure Jogger. Well, what's up, everyone? Hope you're having a good day, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube. Today, I've got Collin Morris in the studio with us. Collin and I met, I guess it's been a couple years, 2 years maybe. Collin is the reason I was able to get into the Leadville 100 last year. He reached out and was generous enough to donate his volunteer hours to me so that I could actually run the race because I didn't get in from the lottery. And then he came out and crewed as well, and I just crewed Collin this past weekend, which we're going to talk about. But anyway, welcome, Collin. How's things going today?
Hey, what's up, Steven? So fun to hear you recount that little scenario. Doing good, man. Glad to be here. Glad to have just finished Level 100 and have a chance to chat with you right after.
Yeah, definitely, man. It was a good weekend. It was a busy weekend as crew and running. I mean, I know what that's like, and we'll get to the whole Leadville thing. But first off, I guess how's
Yeah.
recovery going? How you feeling?
It's going really good. I got some sort of knee issue going on, which is one I hadn't dealt with before, and I think it has something to do with like a kind of a weak adductor on the inside of my left quad, so it's pulling on the insertion point in the inner, like the medial knee, and so that got kind of upset during the race actually, but I was able to power through, and then of course once you stop, then that's when everything kind of flares up. So I've just been kind of nursing that, and I just finally started icing it because I'm not a big ice guy, but
Right. Yeah.
and it like instantly is feeling better. So, but yeah, other than that, like, I mean, if it wasn't for that, I'd probably already be doing some recovery miles because the body feels pretty good.
Oh, wow. So no issues walking, no other than the knee, but no like ankle stiffness, soreness, or anything like that?
No, like it was funny. I was doing like a little bit of, I was like, you feel kind of stopped in your tracks when you have something like a knee. And so I was like, well, let me just see. So I kind of did some like one-legged almost squats on my right. And I was like, yeah, I don't really feel anything. I mean, the next
Wow.
day, feet were a little swollen. I mean, getting through the airport was interesting. But yeah, I mean, we're at Wednesday now, so we're, all 3-ish days out. And so overall, kind of feel like my brain is coming back in to my skull, and
Yeah. Getting caught up on
yeah,
that sleep.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, when you finished, I mean, you were walking pretty darn well considering you just finished 100 miles. So it's a testament to your training. You definitely put in the work to get yourself ready and you got the buckle. I mean, yeah, you,
yeah.
you got it done. So kudos to you for the good training block, but also getting that buckle,
Thanks,
man. It was
man.
awesome. Awesome to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I guess let's go back to, I guess, when you started running. Like, what was the impetus that, set you on that journey?
yeah. So it's funny. I look at the acute run, like the start of my running most recently would have been in, I guess, the middle part of 2020. Um, like, I mean, if you go way back and because I really never even thought about it, but I did do like, I ran the mile, like at like one or two track meets in high school,
Okay.
or I mean, junior high. And then there was like, I started recounting, and there was like a brief time where I was living in Napa and I was married. It was probably 10 years ago or so. And I had a pair of running shoes, and I remember having a notepad, and I got so stoked I was going to start running. And I wrote, like, I did this little run, like where I went to a park that I knew of and kind of went to the top of it and came back down. And so I just started writing, and I can remember it clear as day. I did it like 3 days in a row and then completely stopped. So I just was not, I guess, in the right spot then to like really get into running.
Right.
But then, so
Wait.
fast forward. go.
Real quick.
Yeah,
Do you have any idea, remember what your mile time was when you ran back in junior high?
I do. Like for what it was, considering I was like, actually, now that I say this, I should say in comparison to what is now, it's like not even in the realm. But it was a 6:24.
Well, that's pretty darn
So
good, especially for not like running really. I mean, that's
yeah,
awesome for junior high.
yeah. It was. It's a funny story though, and I think it may have been the reason I quit. I remember. I think I started the track team because there was cute girls on the team, and then I
Naturally,
think
yeah.
I left the naturally, and then I think I left the team because, dude, even the 6:24, like the fastest time at that meet was a 5:59,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I was a 6:24, and they were setting up the next race when I was finishing, and
Oh wow.
I looked at the coach and I go, "What was my time?" And she's like, "Oh, 6:24." I was like, "Cool, way to like let everybody finish before you line up
Right?
the next heat." But
Good grief.
yeah, so
All right. Well, man.
that was my original running. But
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
so
Well,
fast
sorry.
forwarding to like 2020. Um, so I was just in a kind of a funny spot at work here, living in Tennessee. We're just south of Nashville. I'm originally from Napa, California, but we were here in work. Hate to even bring up COVID, but it was just during a time where the work that I was doing was heavily affected by it.
Right.
So our business model kind of really had to shift, and everybody was going, "How are we going to salvage this?" So they were switching a lot of our positions around, and that gave me a lot of angst. I think just kind of going, where's this going? What are we going to do? What am I going to do? And so really tried to like zone in on how to get through that. And I heard somebody talking about a podcast. It was actually Andrew Huberman was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was just talking about brain science. And then they referenced David Goggins. They were like, "Oh yeah, he's crazy. He runs a lot." And then so I was like, okay. So I looked up that podcast, and I was like, yeah, I didn't know this existed. Like I didn't know people were like this or tried this hard at
Right.
things. So that was kind of, and I had known about ultra marathons like briefly. I just remember seeing a guy running through a pop up tent in a field and him talking about how he was losing his toenails. That was like, I kid you not. I wish I knew what doc that was or what video that was, because I know I saw that a long time ago, but I had no idea what it was. So, yeah. Anyway, I just started kind of like sifting through everything, and so went hardcore into Goggins to figure out a little bit more of that like mindset of kind of giving up when things are hard. And then I saw Courtney DeWalters when she did the Tahoe 200, and I can't remember
Oh
the name of
yeah.
it, unfortunately. But when I saw that one, and that's when it really clicked. I saw Tahoe, which is near where I'm from, so saw the trees, I saw the trails, and I see this girl who now we know is the goat. But I see her just kicking butt, and I was like, man, what is she out there doing? Like it. I mean, it even just gives me chills right now to just think about it. And I just remember thinking, wow, there's something out there.
And how awesome that you saw this documentary back in 2020 with Courtney DeWalter, and then, spoiler alert, you just got to meet her Saturday
Yeah,
morning at the
it's
start of
true.
Leadville.
It's true. Yeah, dude, it's full circle, man.
I gotta tell. Hold on, I gotta tell that story real quick.
Yeah,
So we're walking from the house to the start, and we see Courtney and her husband Kevin right outside. Like Kevin's getting ready to run, and I'm like, I made the stupid mistake. I've met Kevin. I've talked to Kevin for a long time before, and I made the stupid mistake. I go like, it's Ryan, right? He's like, no, it's Kevin. And you ask him, are you running? And you ask Courtney, are you running? And she's like, no. Kevin says, I am. And then Kevin just goes right, Colin goes right up to Courtney, sticks his hand out. I just want to meet you and shake your hand. Like, it was so funny. That was
oh,
great.
she was looking at me like I don't know, just it was so unexpected. Like I just came into their personal bubble, like, "What's up, guys? Fist bump,"
And this like
and they were like,
3:20 in the morning. Like,
"Yeah, yeah." Which I'm like, you'll get if you get to know me, like in a good space. I love to interact and meet people like that, but I totally am them on the other side. Like if I was focused on something and somebody came up, I'd be totally caught off guard. So I did to them probably what I wouldn't want someone to do to me.
No, it was great. It was, sorry to interrupt your story there, but yeah.
No, it was great. But yeah, so I saw I saw her running and thought, this is incredible. I just I don't see how this is possible. And then I had my own challenges as well that I was sifting through, some mental health diagnoses that I've got, many, many years ago. Just to put those out there, it's bipolar disorder, auditory processing disorder, and ADHD. So I was diagnosed with them at different times, most of which were a long time ago. But ultimately kind of had allowed some aspects of those things hold me back a little bit on maybe trying to do things that I didn't think I could do. One of
Right.
those was when I saw these people do this, I just instantly go, well, I could never do that because I can't, sacrifice sleep. Sleep is one of those things, especially if you have a mental health disorder, you got to get good sleep. It can
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
lead you down a path. And then, so all in all, again, I just began to challenge that thought a little bit and go, I wonder, like, I kind of pulled on the string of like, well, if I believe that to be true about, so instantly I'm going to throw something out, baby out with the bathwater if I think it would be too hard or if it would, this, that, and the other. So ultimately then, kind of getting even just deeper with that was going through some marital troubles. And Anna's my wife of 11 years, and she's crewed me every 100 I've been on now. And it's been a wild ride and good. At the time, we were just not connecting. I think, I was honestly a little bit outside my mind with just everything happening at work
Hmm.
and just not in a good space. And
Yeah.
so when you're not in a good space, it's hard to communicate. So I'll just say it
Definitely.
that way. Um, and so when I found out about this, I thought, all right, well, and I thought everybody else around me should change. I thought, well, work's doing it wrong. The house way should be done this way. Like, I had it all figured out, right? And I was right.
Yeah.
And so, and it finally hit me that I go, you know what? If I've got it all, if everybody else needs to change, and they're not, I mean, maybe I should probably take a look in the mirror too. So that's when kind of that Goggins mentality of like the accountability mirror that he talks about. And so I started to utilize some of those ideas. And I go, well, you know what? I can, like, all right, let's try and run. So let's run around the block. So that is when running came into play. I ran 1 mile around my block, and I literally thought to myself, well, I didn't die. I mean, like, that was okay. And then the next day it was 2, and I didn't even have like a watch or anything. I actually went into Apple Health, and there is a way to track miles. And
Right.
I remember seeing it was like 1.1 in Apple Health, and I was like, oh, that was a mile. Okay, cool. Then I did 4 miles, and it just kind of spiraled, and I really just fell in love with the idea of. Then I found Leadville kind of all at the same time. Somebody bought me Born to Run, and I was listening to it and learning about these dudes that
Great
are,
book.
yeah, like these guys. So I learned, the barefoot side of things and running in the canyons and these 400-mile ultra marathons, um, all the way to, some of the newer stuff, running on pavement with these big cushioned shoes, the
Right.
Badwater 135 from David Goggins and all this stuff. So I just got thrust into all of it and then found out about Leadville. And so within a couple of days of that first mile, I decided I wanted to run the Leadville 100 as soon as possible. And so I did end up going in 2021. So that was within a year of that
Wow.
first step I took.
So within 1 mile, you went out a year later, within a year, and attempted 100 miles.
That's
That's
what I did. It
wow.
actually would have been sooner, but in 2020, that was the first year there was no Leadville 100.
Yeah, I'm sure it was canceled because of COVID or postponed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you train like as a new runner, basically,
Yeah.
starting out on your own 1, 2, 4 miles? How did you train? Did you hire a coach? Did you do it all yourself? What was your mindset there?
Yeah. So the first thing that I did was just kind of go out according to feel. I kind of tested myself. I ran for about 2 weeks on a pair of 10-year-old Asics Kayano 17s. Like
Nice.
at the time, I think the 28 was out. And so these are literally the 17s.
Right.
And so I ran it for like 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, cool, let's go ahead and upgrade. So I went out and got a new pair of shoes. And then I remember a big differentiator was hitting 7 miles, and I go, dang, that was a pretty good run, like a 7 mile run. Wow. And I think I went right back and did 8 the next day because I just got so excited. I wanted to best it. Of course, super sore after that. I remember like walking flat footed, when your calves don't move and
Right,
you're just kind of
yeah.
shuffling your feet. Um, but Oh, I totally lost my train of thought. How did I train? So, I did it kind of to feel until I decided that I should probably run a race. And so the only thing that was available was a half marathon.
Okay.
Um, I don't think I'd ran more than 10 miles, and I think I'd been running 2 months with no training and went out there and, locked up at mile 11, went out way too fast, but I ended up running a 1:58, and that was in October. And actually, fun story was the originator of this podcast was at that very same race.
Oh, nice. Ryan was
Yeah,
there.
so we
That's so
both have
cool.
it's the Greenway half marathon, Stones
Ah,
River
okay.
Greenway half marathon in
I know that race. I know that race.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. I actually would really like to revisit it. It's pretty chill, not real big. And it's on a greenway, so it's, asphalt and kind of
Yeah.
rolling. But and then from there I decided, well, I got to run a marathon. The only thing that was available was a trail marathon. Um,
Was
Went
that
out
the
there and did
Natchez
that
Trace?
Natchez Trace Trail
Okay.
Marathon, and I was like, okay, this is it. Like, I don't know if it was just because I grew up going to Tahoe and Yosemite and being in the trees and then falling in love with running, like those things meshing, it. It was game over.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
just getting into nature, immersing yourself in that environment and beauty. And yeah, it's easy to get lost in that. And
Yeah.
racing in that environment is totally different than racing a road marathon or a road trail marathon or a road half marathon for sure.
It
So
was because for me, I'll just say like that it was that moment, and really I remember in that race feeling way in over my head and going uphill, which now if I went back, it's probably like a 9.5 foot hill that I was climbing. But I remember going up a hill and going, like looking at my watch, feeling like I was just lost and going, what am I doing out here? Like, this is wild. But
yeah,
there was that same feeling that I'll literally reference the backside of Hope this past weekend when I was coming up the backside. It's that same feeling of like, this is wild, and I'm not really sure what I'm at, but you're just keeping putting one foot in front of the other.
right. Yeah. So you did that race, and then did you do any ultra marathons at all before you attempted the Leadville 100 in 2021?
Yeah, I did. So I kind of stepped up. I didn't really mean to. It just kind of happened, but everything kept linking up. Like I did that, and then I found out about the Natchez Trace, and then from there I met the hard win like race crew. So I met
Right.
John, and from that race, and then I met Becca and John Cox. John, who was Salty Britches and was out
Right.
at Leadville, and then they said, oh, there's this race, the Fiery Gizzard. And I go, oh, I'd like to volunteer. So I go out there and volunteer for the Fiery Gizzard. I tell them that I want to run Leadville. And then they invite me. They say, well, you have to run an ultra. So we have an ultra next weekend. And if you want to jump into the 12-hour, you're good to go.
Was that the
And
Tennessee Mile?
that was the Tennessee Mile. So same
Okay.
course as the Mid-State Mile, but yeah, Tennessee Mile.
Okay.
So I did the 12-hour, and crazy story, but I barely cracked off a 50K in the 12 hours. And
Nice.
that was when it really hit that there's something way beyond just the difficulty of like a run. That was
Right.
like, yeah. So
Yeah,
went from there.
definitely.
Then I did another 50K that was really hard, the Music City Trail Ultra. Again, none of this is with any training. I like if you ask me what my weekly mileage was, I don't know, 10 miles,
Really?
12 miles. I wasn't like a run might be 1.8, and I'd be like, cool, good run. Had no idea about training or volume or anything.
Okay, so you weren't out doing
Um,
45, 50-mile weeks. You were, yeah, okay.
nope. Um, it's also why my IT band was flared up and I was unable to go downhill for the most part on most all of those ultras and didn't
Yeah,
know
I
why.
imagine.
And
Yeah, I imagine so.
then I found out. Yeah. But then from there, I think so then I hired a coach. Actually, Becca coached me for a little while. Um, I wasn't really utilizing the tools at the time. So we parted ways. And then I found a guy out in Colorado who was familiar with Leadville, and he started coaching me. So from there, we got on like an actual coaching plan.
Okay.
He was sending me workouts, and then I did a self-supported um, 50 miler, which was like, and my goal was to be under 14 hours because that's what you have to do at Leadville is,
Right.
you have to get out to the 50 mark, 14 hours, and then you get 16 hours to get back. So, and did that in like 13:45. And then it was Leadville after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that would have been 2021 was the
Yep.
first time you did Leadville. So I could tell us how they go. Give us a recap of your first attempt at 100 miles at altitude.
Yeah, so I did have the wherewithal to do some research and really try and make myself as familiar with the course as possible. I did go out there early. All three times I've been out there to race, I've gone out like 10 days in advance to get acclimated. Um, so I went into the race pretty decent, but honestly, I probably had, yeah, I mean, I was definitely injured at the start line. Like looking
Okay.
back, I definitely had some IT med issues. Like I was wearing straps on both my knees.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think I was just pretending like we're good, like we'll be fine. But
Yeah.
um, so ultimately going to the start line, super stoked, pumped, and confident. Things felt pretty good until probably looking back, it probably popped up around like mile 28. So after Outward Bound, and then on to you get past the pipeline
Pipeline,
alternate
right.
crewing area, and then up into Mini Mount Elbert. So I remember on that road going, all right, I can't run. Like
Oh,
my
man.
IT band was so painful on my left leg. Actually, it was my right leg. It like swapped over years later, but it was my right leg that was locking up. Come to realize later, power line is kind of deceiving going downhill, and you know this from running
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Like you can totally jog it. It's totally chill.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're not, if you know, like it's 1,500 feet of downhill.
It's a good descent.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you're not used to descending that, which I wasn't, you're just putting unknown stress on your legs, like, and you don't even realize it at the time.
Right.
So all that to say, I think I blew down that too fast, blew up, and dealt with that IT band for the rest of the race. So kind of fast forwarding, came into Twin Lakes, very, very discouraged. I heard that you're not supposed to take ibuprofen, so I switched on race day to acetaminophen.
Okay.
Um, and but I remember telling Brian Pacenti was my coach this year. He was pacing me that year. I just came and I said, dude, I can't run. I can barely walk. And it was funny because I went on his podcast and talked about this, and he just looked at me and he goes, that's fine. He was not worried at all. I mean, that just comes with ultra experience though,
Right.
because
Yeah.
you're gonna come up with something that's keeping you from feeling like you can run.
Right.
And so he said, that's fine. And so I said, all right, cool. So I head out, up Hope, down the backside was really rough. People were just passing me, and I was literally like using my poles like crutches. I mean, I think we've probably all been there at this point, but
Oh, yeah.
if you've run more than one ultra, you've probably had this happen. But just doing the hobbling down on one leg and going, holy cow, I don't know how this is going to happen. I got in, I think I actually had like 30 to 45 minutes ahead of cutoff at Winfield.
Okay.
Um, so not terrible.
Yeah.
Turning around, coming back, um, again, coming down Hope, it was wild. I couldn't put any weight on my right leg at all. So I was hobbling down, and we got in with 15. Well, no, I'm sorry. I don't know what we got in with, but we left with 18 minutes on cutoff.
Oh, man.
So we
And
were
so,
like up against it.
yeah. And so you're like, generally, people make up time on the downhill, but you're not able to do any of that because of this knee.
Right.
So, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah. So fast forwarding, pushed through the night as hard as I could. With Brian pacing. We got to May Queen, and I was actually literally at the cutoff, walking right by the cutoff queen because she meets people on the trail. If you don't know who the
Okay.
cutoff queen is, you don't want to see her on race day. And so, but going down this one section of the Colorado Trail, my legs were in so much pain. I was actually just like kind of screaming out in agony, like as I was running down that part of the Colorado Trail over
Yeah.
those boulders, because
Is
I
that
knew I
coming
was
in?
like
Is that coming into May Queen?
coming into May Queen.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that spot where you go down Hagerman and make a left onto the
Right.
Colorado Trail.
Yep.
And like once, if your knees are locked up, stepping off of a 2-foot boulder is like dead zone.
Yes.
Um, so, and like people were calling out through the trees, like, are you guys okay? And my pacer was like, yeah, we're fine. Cause I was literally like, I was gritting my teeth and screaming, trying to
Uh,
get through. And I don't say that to over dramatize it. It's really where I was. That was where I
yeah.
was at. Um, So we barely made it by the cutoff queen. I collapsed in literally a ball of tears, sitting in the chair at May Queen. They're filling my stuff, and then I couldn't stand back up. So they lift me out of the chair, and
Oh,
so I'm again like, I mean, I literally couldn't stand up. So they got me vertical, and at that point, I kind of knew, because doing the math, I would have had, in order to finish that section at cutoff, you would have to do basically a marathon or a half marathon or 12-ish miles at a sub 15-minute pace.
oof.
So we would
Yeah.
need to be doing 14:30s, 14:00s or better.
Yeah.
Um, and I was barely, like, even the first 2 miles were 17-minute miles at my
Uh,
best. And so I kind of knew. Brian was actually pacing me, and he was helping me. He was like, "Hey, let's count steps. Let's do 100 steps run, 100 steps walk." And so we did the best that we could. But ultimately, sun came up. We're coming up the boulevard. We're at mile 97, and clock strikes 30. So
man.
we weren't going to make it right there. So I sat down because I was like, you know what, we missed the cutoff, but maybe I'll just take a break. But I could not stand back up at all. So
Uh,
at that point, it was like a DNF, and then Anna came down with the van. And again, they had to drag me into the van. I had no
oh
power to
gosh.
stand up.
I bet.
But so a DNF at 97 was
Oh
the first
man.
year. But in all things considered, like, um, I mean, there were some game day decisions made that you just can't foresee. Probably just a lack of understanding of the course and all the things. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I mean, at the end of the day, still pretty proud of that effort.
Yeah, I mean, 97 miles at altitude with a lot of elevation gain, starting injured, like you mentioned,
Yeah,
getting that far, definitely something to be proud of for sure. As your first attempt at 100 miles, that's,
yeah,
definitely a good effort for sure. But that was not the end of your Leadville journey, of course. We know
right.
that. So before we get to the next Leadville attempt, did you attempt any other 100 milers in there in that year between the races? Or any other really
No,
ultras?
no, I did do some other ultras, but not any hundreds. Actually, it's starting to bleed together now.
I say I'm looking at
Um,
your ultra sign up right now. It looks like maybe you did well, no, that the mid-state mile again, the last person standing race in June, and
of
then yeah,
22,
August of
20.
22.
Yeah, okay. So that was after, yeah. So no races up until that point. And at that point, I had been training. I started retraining probably, I knew within about a day I was going to do it again.
Yeah.
And then did a couple of different runs, but ultimately it wasn't till like probably January, February, March, decided to go ahead and go for it again. um, and then found another coach. Like, I was working at Fleet Feet at the time, and a guy came in named Paul Zanni, who's a incredible runner. I mean, I think he's 54, and he just last year ran it was like a 2:54
Oh wow.
marathon at Boston.
Oh man.
Just a really strong runner, and also has got his age group one in Leadville with a big buckle in Leadville.
Oh
And
wow.
we just
That's awesome.
connected right away. Yeah. And I told him what I was looking to do. And so we hooked up, and we started coaching relationship there. So we used Midstate, or yeah, the actual Midstate Mile as somewhat of a training run. I blew up big time there because of heat, but that was the race that I did between that and then Leadville again the second
Okay.
time.
So what did you do, or did you work with your coach, or what did you do to figure out the IT problem and kind of, fix it,
Yeah.
recuperate it a little bit? What did you do?
Well, all the things on the internet, you try everything, you stretch it, and then they say, well, you can't fix IT band syndrome by stretching your IT band. The IT band doesn't stretch. You have to release the fascia. You got to strengthen the muscles around it. So we started doing all the things, but ultimately, what really fixed it was he had a massage guy that he sent me to, and
Oh,
this
okay.
guy was like a previous Olympic power lifter, just this big guy, and he was probably like getting close to his 60s. And he basically said, like, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I need you to fix my IT band. And he goes, okay, is that it? And I was like, Well, yeah, I mean that's all I'm here for. And he fixed it. I'm not even kidding. Like the way that he like laid into it and broke it up, and he
Right.
started from my feet, and just what he did, I don't know. It was amazing. It really did loosen it up enough to where everything else that I was doing with strength training and probably just running better running economy and efficiency.
Yeah.
But him breaking it up, it seemed like what really relieved the tension right around that ice pick pain on the knee.
Yeah, yeah. So a massage from a 60-year-old man is what cured you. All right, we got it, everybody.
That was it. Hey, you guys you need to
No.
find yourself an old guy that knows the tricks. Like, and
Exactly.
that hurt, dude. The pain
Oh,
was
I bet.
insane. But like, I knew that if I was like, hey, I'll take it. If I
Yep.
can take it for an hour as opposed to having to run for 30 hours with it. So,
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think we've all anybody that's run any length of time has had an IT band problem. I know I had one back when I was running on roads when I first started running,
yeah.
and yeah, they're painful. But yeah, when you break up that fascia, it's one of those hurt so good kind of feelings for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then you do Leadville again in 2022.
Hmm.
And I think you, like you said, you did the whole go out 10 days in advance kind of thing, get
Hmm.
acclimated. And did you volunteer at that time when you were out 10 in 2022? Is that when you volunteered to get the hours that you then donated to
Yes.
me?
Yep, that was the time.
Okay.
Yep, I got out there early, volunteered for the mountain bike race, and then ran actually the 10K. That's
Oh,
this one
cool.
right here.
Okay.
So I ran the 10K, and that was actually really fun. Just to kind of gather together, and you run the first and last 3 miles. It's like an out and back from the 100 start. So you just
So
do an
you
out
go
and
out the
back.
boulevard basically?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
you go
okay.
out. You start at the start finish line.
Okay.
So you go out Harrison, you get onto the boulevard, and then there's a tent, and you just turn around, come right back
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering where that course was. I've seen like some on a gravel road. I didn't know if it was the
yeah,
course or maybe on the north side of town.
yeah.
Okay, that's
It's
cool.
fun though to hit those roads and know you only have like either 3 or 6 miles. Because like
Yeah.
coming back in, like bombing up the chute, it's hard, but it's fun because you
Yeah.
know you're gonna finish. So,
Yeah, it's a lot different than at
um,
97 miles in.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
All right, well then,
Yeah.
how did that race go in 2022 for you?
Yeah, so Paul is a really great runner. He's smart. He's been doing it a long time, and he's a great coach. And one of the biggest things that he had me do was this like what it was like a treadmill Hope Pass workout. So essentially, the biggest differentiator I felt like that year, and along with intervals and some higher intensity running, was this. So what you would do is you'd put the treadmill at 15%,
Okay.
uh, and then you want to go for 4 miles. So 4 miles at 15%. You try and get there in 60 minutes, which would be a
Okay.
15-minute mile with no running. So that simulates Hope Pass because it's 4 miles, and technically on a treadmill at 15%, that's 3,300 feet. So it's as
Okay.
close as you're going to get to like hiking a mountain. But the idea is that because you're doing it at a 15-minute mile pace, you're obviously only doing it in an hour, and it's more working your aerobic system, not just because obviously you're hiking slower going up Hope Pass itself.
Yeah, and you can't account for the
Um,
altitude on the treadmill, so maybe that higher effort, yeah.
yep, exactly, and that just gets your body used to knowing that hey, we're going up and we're not stopping.
Right.
Like you better lock in. And so by the end of that, I was at like a 4, like almost like a threshold effort.
Wow.
Um, yeah, for sure. Like the first 2 miles, you're like, got this. And then literally like mile 3 and 4, you're sitting there drenched and like 155, which would be like not redlining, but that's pretty close. Like I wouldn't want to be at 155 or 160 in a race.
No,
And
especially
you're
not in Hope
walking.
Pass.
Yeah. And you're
Right, yeah.
walking with that kind of heart rate. So,
I think that's something that
but
a lot
then,
of people don't
yeah,
train enough for. A lot of like trail runners don't, I feel at least, don't train power hiking. Like that's a
it's true.
skill that you have to train because you might think, oh, I can go out and run a 3 hour marathon or, a hilly trail run, but power hiking for an hour straight at a good pace is a lot more difficult than people might think, especially at altitude. So yeah, it definitely takes a certain kind of training.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So you did that training on the
Hmm.
treadmill, the Hope Pass workout, and then what's
Yeah. So
next?
we would do that. like once a week, and then I did another self-supported 50. That year we did it on the road in preparation for it, and it was really hard, and I almost stopped at like halfway through, but was able to finish and ended up with like an 11 hour 50 miler.
Nice.
So that was pretty good, even though considering it was road and not a lot of vert, but that still felt pretty good. And then we went in with like a pretty chill 28:35 goal time for Leadville. And I don't really know. It's funny. I wanted to look, I never looked back and saw how my paces actually matched up. But what happened in 22, I just raced a lot smarter. So two of the biggest things we did is one, I walked down power line, almost exclusively walked.
Oh, okay.
No jogging at all. Yep. I was like, nope, we're locked in. I know what
Yeah,
happened
wow.
last year. So I literally walked down and everybody's just, powering down. And, I just watched everybody go by. But, and then the other thing that we did is I didn't stop at any of the aid stations. So that's where I kind of came up with this idea that I go, because I looked at my watch and in 21, I think it was an hour and a half of idle time that was
I
from at
believe it.
aid
Yeah, I
stations.
believe it.
And so you go, well, shoot, that that's the difference between 30 hours and 28 and a half hours.
Yeah.
So I just decided, I talked to Anna and I go, hey, what if I just, when you see me, we walk together, I hand you the stuff, you hand me mine, and we just keep going. And so that was another thing that we did. And I wouldn't let myself, and then I decided not to sit down at any aid stations, except for changing my shoes after the river crossing coming back through Twin Lakes inbound. But from there, I think I ran a really conservative race. It was almost very similar to what we did this year. I ran out there, I got out to, I think I was 45 minutes to an hour ahead of cutoff at,
Twin Lakes.
um, no,
Yeah.
at Winfield, and then the same coming back into Twin
Okay.
Lakes. I think I might have had a little bit more time. Maybe I had like an hour on cutoff at Twin Lakes inbound. But I was just in good spirits the whole time. I didn't really have I started to have a little IT band pain coming down Hope. And so, I did take some ibuprofen right there, coming back in. But we got in, changed shoes. Me and Paul took off and just power hiked to Mini Mount Albert. Like, you know, it was great. I mean, that whole night just seemed like we were just cruising.
Nice.
Everything was clicking, all the gears were turning. Um, and then we got up and over power line to Hagerman. And when we got to that section of the Colorado Trail, I noticed it was still dark. And the first year that I ran it, it was getting light at that section, which I'll just say
Okay.
right now, if it's getting light and you're on that small section, any Leadville people, if it's light and you're just getting off of Hagerman, you've got some wood to chop.
Yes,
Get to
yes. Yeah,
it.
you better be
So
running.
I noticed, yeah, you better go for it. But I noticed it was dark, and I look at Paul and I go, oh, I go, like, we're not doing too bad. He goes, hey man, do you want to be like, it kind of depends right here. Do you want to be a 28-hour guy? Do you want to be a 27-hour guy? And I go, well, I mean, let's run. Like let's see what happens. So I actually ran that section, and it was like being on a mountain bike. I just had legs left. I was able to like go rock hop kind of down through that. Um, Actually missed, Anna was supposed to be there, but not to throw her under the bus, but Paul was like, oh, just go take a nap and then meet us here. And then she didn't wake up, but we were fine. It was whatever. Um, and then we saw her later, but got onto May Queen, and I was still eating, still in good spirits. Everything was chilling. Um, and then we just kind of started picking people off, at the end of an ultra, if you're kind of, depending on where your situation is, you may, like walking it in is totally reasonable. And
Yeah,
so, but there was a lot of people walking it in, and I had steam, and Paul was kind of like egging me on. And so we just kind of kept picking people off,
that's
and
awesome.
my splits ended up being really good on the second half of the race, and especially that May Queen section. I don't remember what I got it done in, but Paul kept messaging me. He's like, dude, your splits were so good on that section of the course, for being that late in the race. And so that year we finished 27:53.
Dude, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
that's a heck of a turnaround from DNFing at mile 97, and you come back
Yeah.
and have legs to run at the end of a 100. That's awesome, man. Congrats on that great run. And it
Thanks.
like you said, that sounds very similar to this year's. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So you finish that race, you get your
Yeah.
buckle, your nice shiny buckle. I can see it on the shelf behind you there.
Yep.
You got it. I got mine back there too. Um,
Nice.
and then you had all those hours, so you didn't run in 23. What?
Mhm.
Why didn't you run it in 23?
I think it was a big breath of fresh air. We didn't talk too much about it, but it was a big lift on our family. You know this,
Oh yeah,
running ultras can be. So Anna and I, when it first came to running, it was like, how are we going to do this? And you want to run this out of state race? Well, after we did that, the first, had the DNF and then we finished, I kind of looked at it and said, hey, you know what? Let's just, let's see what happens this year. Let's maybe not put 100 on the calendar, even though I had those hours. Um, and I think that kind of took a little bit of the pressure off the family. So that was kind of the
yeah,
reason. It's
yeah.
like, we got the buckle. Maybe we don't need to go back out there this year to do it again. But I had those hours, and then that's when I saw. I think that's when I saw that you posted that you had entered the lottery, and I had already been like reaching out to people that I'm like, oh, I remember one time they even used the word Leadville. Like, I'm going to hit them up and see if they want to run. And I'm just like, why was there no angel doing this when I wanted to run it?
Right?
Like,
I know, seriously.
but and then I saw your post, and then, so that's when I hit you up, and that's when we started chatting
Yeah. Yeah,
about
well,
it. So
it was awesome to, you put in those hours working, volunteering at the races to donate them to me. At that time,
yeah,
basically a complete stranger. You knew me from
yeah,
YouTube, and we hadn't really talked. And
yeah,
then you coming out to crew me was awesome to have your experience at Leadville, 2 years
yeah.
there. Your course knowledge, man, like is next level. Like I think we were this year, me and Lee and Ryan, some of the other crew members for Colin this year were talking about some of the mountains out there, and we're like looking off, like which one's Hope? Is that Hope? We're like, man, where's Colin? We need Colin. He would tell us which one Hope was. It's like you know everything about that race. But
Yeah,
anyway,
well, this is the map right here, man. This was
right.
next to my bed for 2 years straight, and every morning, like, I mean, I literally every morning I'd wake up and look at it. I would just kind of review it. I'd think about parts of the course and make mental notes. And I'm not like that's not necessarily my personality style to do that with everything, but it's like that hyper focus when that was the thing. It was like it wouldn't leave my
Yeah,
head, and so it's right. It was just
right.
it's all there.
And so you did not run Leadville in 23, but
Right.
you did run the No Business 100 in
Yep.
October of
Hmm.
23. So let's do a recap of that. How did that go for you?
Yeah. Interesting race. Interesting race and interesting training year. We put in the work. I think that there may have been maybe just a lack of knowing how the course will differ. Like, I feel like in Leadville, once you get locked into a climb, you're locked in on a climb. If you're in a
Right.
flat section, you're locked in on a flat section. So like it's like big chunks that you have to overcome. But once you
Right.
overcome a massive chunk, then you are onto a new, it's like an hour or two of one thing and then an hour or two of the other. So I don't think that I had a good grasp of up and down running for a
Mhm.
long extended period of time. So ultimately, long story short, DNF'd that race at mile 62. Um, I felt really strong going out there. I wasn't really prepared for like the creeks. I've
There's a
traditionally, I
lot of
don't
them.
have, yeah, traditionally, I don't have a lot of foot issues. Like in Leadville, I didn't have the first or the year I finished in 22. I had no blisters. I just used some lube and was fine. Um, so I kind of just did that same thing. I just put some lube on, put my socks on like I usually do, and go. Um, and anyway, really, really, really had some foot issues and wasn't able to attend to them until it was too late.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just think that's a different style of challenge. And my dad was asking me, he's like, "Hey, so how does that course compare to Leadville? The elevation profile or the total gain is around the same, 14.5." And it was just different kind of
It
difficult,
is.
it's just a completely different kind of hard. Um, Also, my food was a little different. I ate a lot of because the food is so damn good at No Business.
It
Like,
is so good.
it is so good. I
You'll not find
mean,
a race anywhere else that has, like, better aid stations and support than No
dude,
Business. It's amazing.
just so good. So I think I ate a little much on that, but I also made some rookie mistakes. Like, I mentioned earlier, I do take an SSRI for bipolar disorder, and I had forgotten it. So I spent the first
Oh,
like 15 miles, like Anna, like we were like, we just got to go to the start line. So we had to wait for like Walmart to open. So I think it was just like stress, and again, kind
right.
of rookie mistake. It was kind of strange, but it did definitely cause me to, like, the first 15 miles, like she finally, where we saw at the first aid station, and she had picked it up from Walmart. We were able to get it called in. I just was out of it. It was like, if you've ever heard the term like dysregulated, it was just
Yeah.
like kind of like just 15 miles of just kind of like dysregulation. Like I
Oh,
got through
wow.
it, we were there, but I just wasn't present. It was like the gears were just skipping teeth or something.
Okay.
But so we got the medicine, and then I got stung by a bee. And so that kind of threw me off a little bit more. But everything was good for the most part. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think, I was falling asleep while we were running, like me and my pacer. And I think ultimately, if I would have done some caffeine and maybe taken some time to pull the shoes off and just address the
Oh, yeah.
blisters, I think we would have had a different result. But that was the lesson learned at that race.
Yeah.
In hindsight, that's what it
On
would have
paper,
been.
they're very similar races. You look at, like you said,
Right.
the elevation profile, the amount of elevation gain, descent, very similar. But like you said, No Business is I mean, Leadville's a runnable course aside from Hope Pass and, one of the other climbs out there, unless you're David Roach. um,
Right.
no Business is almost entirely runnable depending on your fitness. I think the
Yep.
longest climb at No Business, I want to say, is like an 800-foot gain, whereas you've
Right.
got Hope Pass at Leadville. So it's massively different. And it's so much more technical, in my opinion. No Business. A lot of
Mhm.
roots and rocks you got to watch out for.
Yeah.
It's completely different races. I've won both of them as well, and you have as well. So both great races in their own regard. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I know earlier you mentioned, your bipolar, auditory processing, and ADHD, and then missing that
Mhm.
medication at the start. I mean, I was curious if you really think that played a very significant role, and it sounds like it did if you were kind of in that deregulated state for, 15 miles out there on the course.
Yeah. I think so. I can't speak to because what I do know about the one of the medicines I take is it's accumulated in your blood.
Right.
So if I had to know, just like a self assessment, if I had to guess, I would think that it was the abrupt change, um, that caused the dysregulation, not
Mhm.
necessarily even the blood level of like the medication.
Okay.
Um, I think it just disrupted, and I go, okay, well now I'm leaving the start line going, I don't know if we're getting my medicine today.
Almost more
Like
mental than
it
actually
was very
physical.
mental. Yeah,
Yeah. I
very
got
mental. And so I probably kind of like psyched myself out thinking that things were maybe going to be worse than they actually were,
right.
but your mind can run in different directions, especially if you let it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, especially in a 100-mile race. It'll go to some dark
Right.
places, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so I
Yeah.
kind of was like, it was almost like it was like a catastrophizing, that
Ah,
idea
yeah.
that you're kind of like coming up with a catastrophe that's going to happen, even though it
Before it even
hasn't,
happened. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. So
So,
you
and then, so by the time I did get the medicine, um, and like, it was all, I mean, who knows, maybe it's placebo at that point, and like gulp, like, sweet, we're good. Now everything's perfect,
Yeah, right.
but no, it did feel like seeing her, that was really great. And I did start to settle back in. Um, but yeah, so I
Okay.
think it's probably a little bit mental, a little bit physiological, the whole
Right.
thing.
Okay. So you learned some lessons, though. You said you learned from those kind of rookie mistake
Yeah.
things there and took those in, wrote them down probably somewhere. Remember to make sure you don't do it again. And then did some
Right.
training. And then obviously, we just got back from Leadville this weekend. Colin ran that. I was
Yeah.
there crewing him. And I got to say, from my perspective, it sounds similar to your 21. Like your headspace this entire race seemed to me and the other crew to be very good. I mean, when you came
Mm.
into Twin Lakes, you were cracking jokes. After you came
Mhm.
back from Hope Pass, you were cracking jokes. You had blisters on your feet, but you weren't concerned about it. We just got
Yeah.
it done. And then May Queen, even like that late in the race, your headspace was so strong. Like you were just, well, I've got a video coming out on my YouTube channel where I've got some funny things from Colin in there where he's just, I mean, just cracking jokes at mile
Yeah.
87 in the 100 miler. A great headspace, man. So yeah, just kudos again for a well executed race, but just
Yeah.
your mental strength in that race was impressive.
Well, thank you. It's wild to even hear. It's like tough to think that somebody would say that about me. So I appreciate that's what shines through. I think that's the best version of myself. I have the most fun doing these things and being around people. Like I wouldn't be cracking jokes to no one. So I think that's a testament to you guys. Having you there was, I'll say it over and over again. Each one of you was so like, getting there early with Chris when we went and took photos,
Right.
getting to go to the dinner with you, Ryan getting to pace, Lee getting to pace, seeing my dad. So like everybody just, so to me, that was like, it was like Disneyland, man. It was
It's
my
like a
favorite
party.
place to be.
Right.
Yeah. Favorite place to be with my favorite people. Anna too. I didn't mention her in that, but yes,
Can't forget your
obviously.
wife. Come on now. Uh,
um, but yeah, it was funny because I knew what needed to happen, and um, so I maybe it's just I also had a really challenging week at work, which was unfortunate because it was very challenging to make this transition. I also don't do real well with transitions, but to be traveling and then to open my laptop and have some things fire up, close the laptop, in Colorado, and then go up to Leadville and, reopen the laptop and jump back into them.
right.
And so to trying to balance that with what should be like a really great week. So I really had to rise to the occasion um, for a couple of days there at work. And once I was able to do that and then focus on the race, it just seemed like I was able to replicate that and like use that same level of like grit, I guess,
Right.
to just
Yeah.
grit down at work and bring the absolute best I had to offer so that I could get to the next meeting, the next day, and then ultimately to the race. Because this is a big deal. I got a lot of people, I raised money for the Challenged Athletes Foundation, which you
Right.
graciously donated toward. And then I have all these people coming and counting on me for this race. And so it was a big thing to feel like I needed to get there. And then that just filters into like how the race actually played out and
Right.
knowing what I needed to do when in order to get there.
Yeah. Well, for
Um,
everybody that wasn't there, tell them how it went. Maybe give us a little recap, and if there were any
mhm.
spots that did go wrong and we just didn't see it as crew. I mean, kind of tell us how the day unfolded for you.
Yeah, so I generally like I'm pretty strategic in only in specific scenarios. Some places like I'm terrible at strategy games, but my strategy when it comes to the race, I've got pretty dialed. I usually jump in about halfway into the corral, about maybe 50% of the crowd, because the first half always takes off. Then there's some slow people, and then I'll usually as those people that took off too fast. So I want to land like somewhere in the first third of
Right.
those people, because once you get to a certain part of May Queen, it's single track and it's the conga line, like they say.
Yeah.
Um, well, I misjudged it by a little bit this year, so I definitely probably about halfway through, so I don't know, like mile 7 or 8, um, I was noticing I was behind a lot of people, and so I'm under the impression that hey, we're all out there, and as long as you're courteous, there's nothing wrong with asking to pass somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, because it's not like, I don't know, dude, like if you're running your race and they're running theirs, there's no like disrespect at all. As long as I mean, if you're pushing by or you're rude about it, yeah, definitely, it's not cool.
Yeah.
But so, like, I mean, I think we can all agree with that. But so I just began being like looking kind of for a spot. And then if I felt like my pace was ahead, I would say, hey, cool if I squeeze by you on the left here, like, or when you have a chance, something like that. And most people were cool. One guy was like, oh yeah, what are you going to now try and push by the next 40 people? And I was like, actually,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a race. Like, I know we're all
Exactly.
like in this together. It is a race though.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was kind of challenging. And then getting to May Queen, I just want to say I do really appreciate all the work that the organizers at Lifetime have done over the 41 years of its history. I don't know fully all the challenges that goes into putting on a race like that, but one of the things they did this year was remove crew from the first aid station, and that made it a pretty big challenge. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it made it a very big challenge for the volunteers first and foremost,
Yeah.
and then also the runners because it was hard to get water. There was lines.
I heard they
I
didn't
did a
have
drop
any.
bag.
Yeah, I heard they didn't have volunteers helping with drop bags at all either. So you had to like find your own bag in the piles.
You had to find your own bag. And the thing is, and this is a rookie mistake, because they required clear bags. Well, I put duct tape around the corners of mine, but guess what? Everybody has clear bags and put some duct tape around the corners of
Oh
them.
man, yeah.
So, I mean, it was just hard to see. And I was kind of calling out, like, are there any volunteers that can help with drop bags, looking for drop bags? And so I probably spent well, it felt like forever, but it was probably between 5 and 10 minutes.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and we're talking about well, probably more like 600 or 700 drop bags. And I was like, okay, I may have to bail, just get water and whatever they have at the aid station. Um, and the reason is usually I would get my nutrition there from crew,
Right.
because then you have about another 12 miles before. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not doing a marathon with no nutrition or only half
Yeah.
nutrition. So anyway, about 8-10 minutes, I found my bag. I put it in. Then I went and got in line for water,
Oh my
got
gosh.
my water, and then got on my way. So from there, I was a little upset. And I was just kind of like, all right, well, first challenge, like unforeseen challenge underway here, and
Right.
then was able to but like, brush it off and keep moving. Then I met Nate from the YouTube channel. I
Yep.
don't know it, but
Karen, Nate.
Karen Nate. Yep. So I met Nate and we began chatting, and he's a really great guy, really genuine guy, and we just kind of hit it off going up and over power line. Um, At that point, I probably did Powerline a little faster than I did in 22. And I do think that taxed me a little more, because I was a little upset about losing time at the aid station.
Sure. Yeah.
And I felt really strong this year. And so I kind of sucked it up a little bit. And I didn't do the last section, which is the steepest, but I did. I looked on my map later and like it's red on parts of Powerline. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I ran that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so to kind of zoom through, so I was running behind at that point, and I kind of had the feeling that we may be behind for the duration of the race at that point.
Okay.
I just kind of had this feeling like, all right, that's kind of where we're at, and unless I go out and make up time somewhere, we're probably not going to gain time like
Right.
accidentally. And then so yeah, so came in, you guys were great through all the aid stations. Um,
Will I interject there
oh, go
real
ahead.
quick? Can we interject with
Yeah.
a cruise story? I don't know if Anna shared it with you or not, but so it might have been a blessing in disguise, possibly, that you had that line for the water at May Queen,
Uh-huh.
because I got your text when you were at the top of power line. It was like 8:03 a.m., I think. And it
Uh-huh.
says top of power line about, I think it's at 3.5 miles left, roughly, something like that.
Mhm.
And so I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, okay, so 35 to 45 minutes, probably, give or
Right.
take. And so I'm looking around and Anna's not there yet. And Anna was the one that had your crew bag with all of your stuff in it. And so me and Lee were the only two. Well, me, Lee, and Chris were there. Chris was taking photos. I was videoing a little bit, and Lee was just standing there kind of hanging out. And so we're freaking out. Like, where the heck is Anna? Oh my gosh, we don't have anything. Like, so Ryan got there. Ryan ended up going and getting his own nutrition from his running stuff to come just in case Anna didn't get there in time. But luckily, Anna showed up. She had the crew bag, and I think she got there probably 15 minutes before you did. And so it all worked out
Oh,
fine.
wow.
But we were stressed out. Like, Lee and I, we were freaking out. Like, where the heck is Anna? Call Anna. Where is she? Get an update.
Oh man, that's funny.
It was
I
great.
knew she did say that she wasn't there right away. She probably, I think she downplayed it a little bit.
Well,
I
the race is
think
over now, so
yeah, But no, that's funny. I didn't know the full extent of that.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, past Outward Bound.
Yeah, so made it through Outward Bound. Everything felt good. I think we got into I think I got into Twin Lakes and was starting to feel a little bit of a twinge on the and this is like something I've had before, so it how it appears is like a little bit of this medial pain kind of on the inner part of your knee.
Mm-hmm.
And a massage therapist one time told me that it could be a tight adductor. So um and as I would like when I would feel that knee pain, I could usually find a spot on the adductor where I'm like, oh, there's a knot, like there's a tight spot.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, that's something that I've dealt with over the course of training this year, but I would just always roll it out, get rid of it, and it was fine. But it did start to sort of pop up. Um, and then so that became something that I was kind of managing for in the duration of the race,
Yeah. And I
which
know
did
you were
make it
hot
challenging.
too, as well. You came
Yeah,
in. You said you were really hot because it got a little warmer than I think they were forecasting.
it did. And what was interesting is when I came into coming down power line, I was like perfect. And then across the middle section of the valley there in the sun, I did get pretty warm. Um, but by it was kind of like it was too early to address it at Outward Bound, and then like kind of too late to address it at
At Twin Lakes.
Pipeline.
Or, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and at Twin Lakes. So it was kind of a catch 22. And again, in my head, I was like, if I can keep from having to get my shoes soaked, the would be better. Like so the ice bandana thing. But yeah, definitely hotter year, drank a lot more water. Um, really should have had some sort of either third flask or maybe just a more of a plan to like when I hit an aid station, like down a flask and then
Yeah.
walk away with two full ones. So again, just 2022 was cloud covered the entire race,
Oh wow.
which is why I think that's why I think I've had a pretty solid race, honestly, is your body's just not as taxed. There was no direct sun. It wasn't hot. I was actually cool like the whole race.
Oh wow. Yeah, this year was
So
not was not like that. I remember you were I think
yeah,
the only cloud cover you had was the little light rain shower we had at some point on I think you might have been on Hope. But other than that, it was
yeah,
full sun exposed the whole time.
yep, yeah. The backside of Hope was a little bit shaded by the clouds, and then yeah, I was far enough behind at that point where the sun was actually on the other side of Mount Hope, and Mount Hope's a 13er, so it's when
Yeah.
you're inside the gully right there going up, it's not hard to be out of view of
Yeah.
the sun. But
Well, how did Hope
yeah,
Pass go
so
for you?
when
Yeah.
yeah, Hope Pass on the way up um, was pretty good. I was blown away because I'm pretty sure that I was not even at the base of Hope Pass when sorry, the winner's name.
Oh, David Roach.
So I'm like usually I'm about halfway up Hope Pass and I see, which is insane, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing the leader. I wasn't even like to the base of Hope Pass and I
Oh
see
my
him and I'm like,
gosh.
I was literally like, that's course record.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was, what pace he was on. I knew the course record was in the 15s, but I was like, yeah, that's course record. Like there's no way unless he blows up,
Yeah.
and which he obviously didn't, which
No.
is mind blowing. But yeah, so Hope Pass went good. Back down the other side was pretty solid. Hit Winfield, got my stuff, and then came back out. But I did have a tough time on hydration. I was feeling really strong until probably it's a funny part of the course. You're climbing the whole time, but you kind of come out of tree line and then it gets like stupid hard
Yeah.
um, at the like the above the tree line coming up the back of Hope. So by
Yes.
about tree line, still have about I don't know 1,500 feet left to climb. I was out of water, so I also couldn't eat because I wasn't going to down a gel with nothing to wash it down.
Right.
So anyway, at that point, it was like survival mode. I was like, I know where the aid station is. It's right on the other side. Like I just have to get there. But it was a struggle bus for sure. There was a couple people around me that I kept kind of gaining on, and so that's how I kind of gauged that I was doing better than the pack, I
Okay.
guess. And it was also really lonely out there. I don't know if a lot of people DNF'd early, but like there was not a lot
Yeah.
of people that made it to Winfield that year.
I remember the same
Um,
feeling coming up the backside of Hope. Like I would go
yeah,
30 minutes without like passing or
yeah,
seeing another person. And just very, yeah, kind of like you said, lonely.
yeah. And so, but finally made it up and over, got to the aid station, and I'd been hitting ramen and mashed potatoes and broth pretty hard. That seemed to just be doing the trick. So I pull up, I just go, yeah, like, yeah, can I get some ramen and mashed potatoes? He gives it to me. And again, I didn't plan on sitting down at all, but I sat down, I ate it, and I must have looked like absolute garbage because I can kind of see out of the corner of my eye, the guy sees that I sat down, finished the cup, and then was just kind of like hanging over myself because he comes over and he like kneels down and he goes, he's like, do you want another one? And I go, yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, I'll take another one. So he comes back over and then he had some really good thoughts because at that point, I think he was like, he was like, you're 2 hours and 15 minutes ahead of the cutoff. Like, so to get down Hope, which is reasonable.
Okay.
Um, he goes, honestly, if you were closer, I'd be kicking you out. He's like, but the way that you look right now, he's like, I think just grab some water, get your things refilled, get reset,
Right.
and then make your way down. Um, it was at this point I realized I still had my sunglasses on and it was getting dark. So shout out Phoenix headlamps because on full power, you can still see the ground with sunglasses on.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, so anyway, that from there, I think I probably took in like 600 calories right there on the
Oh,
spot,
wow.
and I downed a scratch before I went down, which was super diluted, but it was good anyway. Um, and then yeah, making my way down was really challenging. My knee was really starting to hurt there, so um, I kind of I was also dealing with the challenge of like the seeing because I had to use the spotlight instead of the floodlight because of the glasses. So I was trying to be more careful. Only had one like potential ankle roll that could have
Oof.
been challenging, but I caught it, And so at that point, I was like, all right, like I know, like I'm trying to get in with over an hour of. At that point, I was like, I want to get to the aid station with over an hour ahead of cutoff.
Yeah.
Um, and I was in a pretty bad spot up top, and I called Anna, and I was like, "This just sucks." But then when I got down to the bottom, things were looking better. I gave her a call again, said I'm getting close, and I was able to run it in and get in there with 45 minutes ahead of cutoff.
Right.
So
Yep.
not ideal. But then we had to pull the shoes off, and we had massive blisters, and
Yeah.
but it was like that's and like you said, I was cracking jokes. It was like I brought that KT tape, and I just knew like, hey, if we get blisters, we're throwing tape over the top of them and we're going to put on fresh socks and we're going to keep going. Like
Yep.
it, so it wasn't like, oh crap, what do we do? Or I'm not prepared for it. It was just what you do at that point. So
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, so that's why I think I was able to keep my spirits up because I was just mentally prepared for something like that happening.
So excuse me. So you got out of Twin Lakes. You had about, I think you left, if I remember right, it might have been 9:48, I think is when it crossed the timing
Wow.
mat, I think, because we were there for a little bit. So that was like maybe 9:42, 9:48, something like that. But anyway, you get out of
So it's
Twin
about
Lakes.
25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, ahead of cutoff, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So you get out, finish out the course. How was space camp for you? Did you uh did you go through
So
quickly, or what was your headspace like going through there?
So we had my idea there was because we hadn't done it before. I was like, it might be crowded. So I asked Ryan, my pacer, I was like, you just do my fill up. I'm just going to keep going. And it's funny that because like it depends on the time of the race and like where your head's at.
Right.
Sometimes that
Yep.
like fired up, crazy mentality, you're like vibing with it, and sometimes you're like, I've got work to do. I just need to focus.
Yes.
And so we talked about like dysregulation. I buzzed through, and this guy came up behind me and was yelling to like one of his friends in front of me. And she was probably like 30 yards ahead of me. He was like, go Kelsey, go Kelsey. Like he was shouting, and it was behind my head, and it literally like made me kind of go like this. And so I literally just stepped off the trail. I was like, just let him be pumped. Just let him be pumped. You're cool. You're chill. No one's yelling at you. And I had to like let him finish screaming before I could go back out on
Oh
course. So
my
it's funny because
gosh.
like I remember pacing you. You were like not feeling it.
No, I was
Like
like, I gotta get out of here. This is I can't take this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was a little bit of me as well. But that was actually great because I just kept going, and then I actually made Ryan think that he lost me. He thought
That's
he
what
was
he
like,
said, yeah.
yeah.
Oh
I kept
man.
turning around like, is he coming? Like, So,
So how
but
did the descent coming down, like Hagerman and all that go for you?
all good. That road is such trash. Like the road before you get to Hagerman, you can't even, it's like
Right.
you can't run it. You can't get a line. There's just enough jagged rocks to make you like second guess your footwork.
Yep.
So that was challenging. But yeah, we got into Hagerman, the dirt road there, started busting. And then I had to drop one. So we let that rip, and the old shit kit came in
There you
handy,
go.
and
Well, see,
and then
Ryan told me that as well, that you had to
yeah.
that he said, I think his words were that you dropped, on the Colorado Trail, and I thought he meant you fell, like, you caught a toe and
Oh.
dropped and, like, went forward. I'm like, "Oh, no, is he alright?" He's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Oh, no, no, he just took a crap." I was like, "Oh, okay." It's like yeah. By
I
the way,
dropped,
the
yeah.
shit kit he's talking about is awesome. If you don't have one, like, Colin, you need to, like, patent this, and you need to start selling these because, like, this would be awesome. But it's a bag, and then inside the bag is some toilet paper or, like, wet wipes, and
Mhm.
a glove, a latex glove. So you can put the glove on your hand and wipe yourself without worrying about getting stuff all over you. Then you can put the things you need to back in the bag, dispose of it later, and it's good. You don't have to get anything dirty. Like, I remember you were gracious enough to give me one of these kits last year when I ran it, and I was like, "That's a really good idea." Like, yeah, you need to sell those, man.
I'm on it. I'm on it. We're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
So,
like there's so many. Yeah, no more giving away my ideas though. I gotta
all
get this.
right.
I gotta get this patented before the podcast comes out.
That's right. That's right. Well, so you got into May Queen then, and how did everything go there? You seemed like you were had good headspace. You knew you were going to finish at that point.
Right. So I knew that I like Ryan is a really great pacer and great runner in general. Ryan Morris is who we're talking about, and he helped me kind of stay on pace. We kind of just decided I knew I needed to make 17:30 or less, like pacing average. Each mile needed to be less than a 17:30 in order to get into the golden hour. And so I was just trying to manage, energy with pain, and strength and output without going too hard. Um, so we were able to make it up and over down into May Queen, and then pick up Lee. And at that point, it wasn't necessarily that it was cruise control, but it was like halfway between, because we
Yeah.
knew we could cruise. We still needed to hit our paces, but like there's still 12 miles to go. It's a pretty predictable trail, but that's still 12 miles. A lot can
Yeah.
happen. You still have to keep fueling, you still have to keep eating, drinking, all that stuff. And so, um, yeah, but long story short, um, Lee was super encouraging, and he was actually helping me with pacing and like kind of deciding when to eat. Because at
Oh,
one point
good.
I was like, damn it, I know I need to eat, and I don't want to. Um, and I asked him, I was like, should I? Because we're like 6 miles out. I'm like, I really need to. And he basically gave me the advice, which I thought was really good. He said, if it's going to make you sick, then don't. But if you can take it down, you should.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's fair advice. And so I kind of like tested it a little bit, felt okay about it, and was able to get a gel down.
Nice.
Um, because yeah, it's tough. Once your stomach's empty and you need to eat, there's like the last thing you want to do is put a gel back.
Yeah. No. Generally not. No.
But
But yeah, so then you get to Harrison, and how'd that feel seeing the arch in the distance?
oh yeah, it's one of the greatest feelings ever. I think that's probably for any 100 miler. For me, Leadville is just really special in that way. Um, knowing that everybody was there, my family, and having you guys there, and that I'd completed the task, just felt really good. And it was in the golden hour. So the year I finished 2 years ago, it was like I wanted to shave off every minute that I could to get the best time that I could. And so there was just something about this time that allowed me to relax and kind of basically like walk it in, and not, or just, I don't know, like give myself a chance to just enjoy it. And
Right.
because that's not usually my style. But there was just part of me that was like, you know what? Just enjoy this one. Like, you're here. You don't have anything to prove to anyone. Like, you've completed the task. And it was a really a sweet moment. And I mean, crossing the finish line with my dad, it was his first time seeing, and he's like already wanting to get ready for next year to come again. And so,
Nice.
like, I knew I'd suck him in if I could just get a finish in front of
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well,
but
you looked very relaxed. I remember specifically at May Queen, like you were just looked incredibly relaxed. Like you had that confident look in you that you knew, unless something tragic happened, you were going to finish that race at that point. And
right.
then seeing you come across the finish line with the whole crew, your dad, and give your dad a big hug there at the end was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it kind of threw me because he was tearing up a little bit. And it's like, I mean, you get older, and I think men especially just kind of soften as they get older a little bit. And I haven't seen him get emotional, I mean, in 20 years.
Wow.
So that was like, I was like, whoa, I don't even know how to, because, he was just so proud, and that was just
Yeah,
such a great moment.
that's a
It was
special
really
moment.
special.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah. And
special
I'm just
moment. What?
thankful to have, his support.
Yeah, well, it was cool meeting your dad and Stephanie as well. They're both just super amazing, nice, genuine, caring people. We all had a good weekend together.
I'm really glad.
Yeah. Well, so what's next? Are you already planning Leadville 2025 or some other races? What's on the horizon for you, Colin?
Two things. We're definitely going sub 25 in 25.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Nice.
um, and on another note, I did just get an email from the race director that I'm in for no business.
Oh, cool. Whoa, you were like 300 back on the wait list, weren't you?
Yes. So it worked out behind the scenes that we were able to make it happen.
Dude,
So,
that's awesome.
um, I'm really excited. Yeah. So it's 9 weeks.
Heck yeah,
So
man.
we're starting recovery now, and then we'll be working our way in.
Well, you know what you're gonna
Um,
do? You know what you're gonna do is you're gonna go sub 24 there because you're gonna do what I did. I went to Leadville, I ran it, I finished it, but I had a horrible end of Leadville. I threw up and walked it in, finished about the same time, very close to what you finished this year.
mhm.
But then I went to no business and destroyed the course because I was used to the altitude and it was like totally different. So you're gonna have a great experience at no business. You're gonna nail it.
Nice.
You're gonna go sub 24. You're gonna do awesome, man. I can't wait to see you because I'm gonna be there too.
Yeah. I remember that because Lee's running as well, right?
Yeah, I have a bunch. My wife's running, Lee's running.
Oh,
A
she
bu-
is.
oh yeah, it's my
Nice.
wife's redemption because she ran it in 21, 22, I think it was 21.
Okay.
No, 21. DNF'd at mile 54 with Chris, his other crew. DNF'd there, same aid station. So yeah, she's gonna be running it. Her redemption. You're gonna be running it now. Lee's running it, and I got 3 other friends in Tennessee that are running it. So it's like going home, man. It's gonna be fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So no business.
I will have now seen the whole course because last year I got to 62, which
Right.
was, I think, clockwise, and now we're counterclockwise this year.
Right. Yeah. So you'll get to finish on the Rock Creek section, which is horrible.
Mhm.
So be prepared for that. It's
Yeah,
imagine the rocks of coming down. I think they call it, is it Sugarloaf is the when you take the left on
yeah,
Hagerman. Okay. So yeah, imagine those rocks. It's like that, but it's more flat, but oh, it's 90 something miles into the race. That sucks.
yeah.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what's
But
after
yeah,
no business then?
so I would like to go back to and revisit, the Tennessee Mile.
Okay.
So that was where I did my first ultra. They have a 40 hour that's in December. So I think we'll see what they've got a 6 hour, 12 hour, 24 hour, and a 40 hour.
Okay.
And so when I did the 40 hour, it was after finishing Leadville. And at 35 hours, I had 70 miles, and I was like, this is a PR for time on feet. And so I just pulled the plug there. So this year, I'd like to do one of two things. If I do the 40 hour, I'd like to win it outright, and if not, at least hit 100 miles on that course. Which,
Yeah,
for
that's
people that
tough.
don't know, yeah, for people that don't know, I think so I did like a 50K, which was 31 miles, was 10,000 feet of gain and descent. So 30, 60, 90, 30. So what's that? 45,000 feet of gain, probably over 100 miles.
Yeah, because I think it's like what 330 something feet per mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
340 per mile.
340. All right, so 340 times 100 is 34,000 feet.
Okay.
But
34.
that's still a crap ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
than hard rock.
Um, yeah, technically it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just straight up and down. So we'll go out there and do that. And then there's a couple of other things that I'd like to do in the early part of next year. Generally, though, I think what I may seek out is a faster marathon. I have
Oh
heard from
yeah.
a lot of the Leadville guys that go big buckle, which is sub 25, is getting a fast marathon done in the spring
Yeah.
is a great way to kind of get your turnover up, because you will need speed to do sub 25. It's not just an endurance game at that point.
And get that VO2 max up, which will help tremendously at altitude as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Maybe the Greenway Marathon back there, your starting point. Maybe you go back there
that'd be
again.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty flat one if I remember right. I think it's like 300 feet for
Yeah.
a marathon. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And then
Pretty
sub
chill.
25 at Leadville. That's the goal. Okay.
Yep. We're
Well,
gonna do it.
I'll definitely be there for you if you need it. I know Lee's trying to get in as well, so maybe you guys can run together and it'd be a good old reunion.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. Well, we'll have crew, that's for sure. So
Oh yeah, definitely have plenty
yeah.
plenty of options there.
Yeah,
So
my dad and Stephanie are like stoked. Stephanie's like all in. They're already like ready to go for next year.
that's awesome, man. That's so cool, especially
Yeah.
for that being their first. Like, if you're gonna
Yep.
have a race where it's gonna be somebody's first to crew, I mean,
Yeah.
Leadville's not the easiest to crew, but it's probably one of the biggest and coolest to be a part of,
Hmm.
and that environment and experience. So that's you definitely get
Yeah.
them hooked. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, a
Well,
blast.
let me. We've been going here for a little while. I don't want to take up all your time, but I've got a couple. I like to end kind of on some rapid fire questions for you.
All right. Cool.
So whatever comes to mind, just shout it out. Doesn't matter. So
Let's do it.
favorite trail snack.
Oh, it's nerd gummy clusters.
I knew you would say that. Yep.
Dude,
Yeah, that saved you at
those are
Leadville.
nerd gummy clusters.
All right, I'm gonna have
Yep.
to try that. I've never had those on a run. I'm gonna have to try that. All right, so well, I know this one: mountains or beach. I'm pretty sure you're gonna say mountains.
Yep, definitely
Yep.
mountains.
All right, morning run or evening run.
Lately it's been evening run.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's been evening run.
And what's your favorite post race treat?
Oh, post race treat. Um, Probably an NA beer.
Okay. All right, an
Like,
athletic
yeah,
brewing or
I'd
something
consider
like
that a
that.
treat.
Okay.
What's that?
All right. I said something like an athletic brewing or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. Well, then how about do you have what's your biggest running pet peeve? Is there something that just drives you wild?
Oh, running pet peeve. I could probably come up with a few. You mean like that other people do?
Yeah, that drives you crazy. Yeah.
Um, I'd probably say like taking it too seriously.
Okay. Yeah, watching the
Like,
splits.
and yeah, like that could come across in any way, in many different ways. And I mean, I take it pretty seriously, but like, um, I just think that we're not pros. Like, we're not getting paid for this. We're not out here sponsored. So
Right.
like, I'd say one of my biggest pet peeves is like letting running, um, like I don't know, running's definitely my identity. Like there's no doubt about it. But
Yeah,
like I think getting too serious about it to where it maybe, gets in the way of other things or makes other
yeah,
parts of life more challenging.
yeah. No, that makes sense. So, what's your favorite season to run in?
Fall. Yeah. I mean, I definitely for at least here in Tennessee, that's when you probably get the most like mild temperatures and have the most options of like where you're going to run and what time. Um, just you can basically hit ideal kind of running conditions any time of the day during fall.
Yeah,
Whereas you got to be a little bit more strategic during the summer.
right. Okay. All right. Well, this one's not
But I
rapid
do love
fire.
myself a good snow run too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love some snow runs. This one's not really rapid fire, but something that could probably help other people out there. Since you've done Leadville now 3 times, you've been out there 4 times, as you crewed me.
Mhm.
So, what is like one piece of advice that somebody attempting Leadville for their first time that you would recommend?
So let's assume that your training is good to go, like you've put in some good miles with good recovery and the right periodized training. You've got your nutrition and your
Hmm.
hydration. Let's just say that you've got all that covered. I would say get out there early if you can. I've always gone out in advance. I think I mean, if you look at the way red blood cells and mitochondria and the way that your body reacts to a lack of oxygen,
Right.
you're going to acclimate more if you get out there. So that anybody that's going to run Leadville, I would say try and get out there, 7 to 10 days in advance. I can't speak to getting out there a day before the race, but I do know the first day that I get there, I'm always short of breath.
Yeah.
But on race day, I can chill in my zone two on a flat section, and I can't do that the first day I get there. So
Yeah.
that, and then I would also just say, don't bomb power line. Like that's mile 22. Um, and I make a video. I made a video last year, and I made another one this year. And it was funny because there was a guy right as I was walking and talking to the camera, and he came like just like the thing is when you walk you're giving 1 to 2 times your body weight on your joints and your legs and everything. When you
Right.
run it's 2 to 5, so you could say 5 plus times your body weight when you're running downhill. And the only reason that I would say that's mainly towards flatlanders, just because we can't get those sustained declines. So, like for instance, my coach Brian, he runs 14ers, and running downhill to him is like drinking water. It's just that's what he
Yeah.
does. So, unless you have those types of descents, I would say just take it easy, and because you're not going to make up that much time, or you're not going to lose that much time
Yeah.
you're going to lose a lot of strength and do a lot of damage to your quads early in the race when you don't really have to. So down the
Yep.
backside of Hope, I would say you need to start running. Like you definitely need to be running down into Twin, down into backside of Hope. But that first section, you're at mile 22. Everybody's feeling good, and it just happens time and again. People blow up.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll say one thing I want to add is training for no business from here in Colorado was very difficult because, like you said, people coming here don't have that long sustained descent or even ascent to train for. Where here, that's all I have. So it's like when I'm trying to find a runnable section of trail where I can go have like a 500-foot climb, that just doesn't
Right.
exist. Like everything out here is like
Right.
1,500 to 3,000 feet of climb. So it was very difficult. We had to get creative, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's good advice for Leadville. Don't blow out those quads early.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Colin, it's been awesome chatting with you, man. Again, I'm just super happy to have been a small part of out there watching you push yourself, do hard things, and achieve your goal, finishing Leadville, get the buckle again. Being a part of it was awesome and special to see that, and just awesome to be a part of. So, thank you for letting me come along there with you. And I look forward to seeing you in What'd you say, 9 weeks for no business, I think?
Yep.
9 weeks?
9
That's
weeks.
crazy. It's coming up quick. Well, I look forward to seeing you there. And who knows, maybe we'll get together for a chat sometime after that as well. But anyway, thank you, Colin. Appreciate you for coming on, man. Hope you have a good one, all right?
Thanks for having me. We'll see you, man.
If you enjoyed this episode of The Adventure Jogger, please consider joining our Patreon and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for more content like this. Without your continued support, we would not be able to produce this type of content. So thank you so much to everyone that has listened, followed along, subscribed, liked, commented, you name it, donated on Patreon. Thank you.